Heavenly Father, it's been so heavy in our town lately, but you say all the things through you are good, and we are definitely seeing the good through these tragedies. Lord, we know the enemy wants our families, specifically our kids. So we ask that you give us the strength to fight for them. We ask that if our children and teens find their way into the snares of the devil, you protect them and lead them back to you. You ask us to gather as communities because where two or more gather, you are among us. This tragedy has shaken this town, but has brought us closer together and closer to you. We ask, Lord, that you protect and bless those listening to this podcast today, along with their families, friends, and towns. We ask you to continue your protection and blessing upon Bridget and I, our families, and our community as we continue to strive to do your work. And finally, Father God, remind us that no one is above reproach, but no one is beyond redemption. Help us to look into the eyes of the people we find hard to love so we see them in your image. Assure us that your mercy triumphs over judgment. We ask this in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Hello, and welcome to the Save Our Children podcast. We're your hosts, Becky and Bridget. Today, we are continuing the conversation around teen violence. This is a continuation of an episode that we did, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, really where we talked about the untimely deaths of some of the teens in our community. It has been 2.5 months since the death of the young man on Halloween, and there have been some updates and great community involvement that we are going to talk about. Although this is happening in the suburbs of Phoenix, just remember this can happen anywhere. And it is our responsibility to make sure that we are getting involved and we're keeping our kids safe. All right, so let's jump into this. How about I do a quick update of what's going on, like legally, not that we speak legally, and then you can get into the shit show that we are calling our towns and our police departments.
Let's do it.
All right. So when Becky and Bridget last left you, just kidding. We actually talked about a young man named Preston Lord who was brutally murdered on Halloween during the Halloween time at a party here in the suburbs of Phoenix. And unfortunately, there isn't very much to say on his case directly. But because of the way God works and the way that he is using this tragedy and this young man, our community and the surrounding communities all together are absolutely stepping up and saying, no more, this is enough, we're done. And it's gotten to the point where many of the either surrounding counties or surrounding cities and towns, their police departments have gone back into their archives into what's happened and looked at past teen violence cases for the last 2 years. And what's happening is they're actually finding that what is called the Gilbert Goons, that's what these kids call themselves, those kids are actually wanted in other cases. And so although nothing yet has been determined and decided for Preston's case, there are, I think we're up to 4 or 5 teenagers and young adults. So we're looking at 16, 17, 18, 19, around there. They are now being arrested, anywhere from battery of a minor to weapons charges to assault charges. So we, again, this is all, they're all innocent as of right now. They're innocent until proven guilty, of course, but these are the charges that they have among them. And as of right now, the 17th of January, there are no arrests for the murder of Preston yet. But it's been pretty interesting. Our town is on fire for this. Like, we're wearing our orange. Orange was Preston's favorite color in closer to my house, they have people have been tying ribbons around all the trees and light posts and bridges and all the stuff. So it's really cool that you're walking down or driving and you'll see orange all over the place, which is really fun. But we really want to get into kind of the madness behind it. Like, so we have a lot of community gatherings and we have a lot of people coming together, which we'll talk about the spiritual and all the amazing things, but we got to talk about these council meetings because what a joke.
Oh my
One was
gosh.
great, one was horrible.
Yeah. And really quick too, also with the color orange, it was Preston's favorite or is Preston's favorite color, but also it is orange also represents awareness and to take action to end violence. So
Seriously?
yeah.
Wow, that's got
So
a mind, huh?
again too with that, again, we are speaking on teen violence. So I wanted to also tie that in there too. Um, But yeah, Gilbert Town Council meeting. I've never been so confused in my life. Um, just because one, how it was organized, like when Jen Daniels ran meetings, like I miss her as a mayor. When she ran meetings, they were so organized and like she was all for community. But this town council, literally, it felt like we were all sitting there, like yelling at the mayor respectfully, peacefully, but also, like, outraged as parents because it was just, like, there was a whole lot of gaslighting going on, and it seemed like she absolutely knew nothing in the community and what was going on, and it was like she didn't prep before the meeting, but yet a memo went out saying, "Oh, wear orange." Um, so it was really awkward in so many parts of the meeting, but even just sitting there and so many times I even found myself like having to stop myself from blurbing stuff out loud because it was like, did she just really say that out loud? And mind you, like I felt like, my heart was broken for the Lord family because some were watching it online, but then also Preston's stepmom, Melissa, was sitting front row. So here's, like, the mayor, and, like, literally first row right here is, Preston's stepmom, and it was just like, when she said that she didn't know about it until, Katie McPherson and the other moms came to the previous town council meeting and said something, it's like, how could you not? Like, it's all over, like, the community is on fire, but even with that too, for her to say that she didn't know and thank the chief of police, um, for providing the tip line numbers and didn't know those existed and that they were already on the website, like and or to put them on the website even though they're already on the website, I was just like, "Oh
But
my."
it's so interesting because it really was. I wasn't able to go, but I watched the playback and it was really interesting because I don't know if she was so nervous for what people were gonna call her out on that
Yeah.
she just blurted shit out that was like that just made her sound like an absolute dumbass? Or do we really have a mayor that is so unaware that now we have a bigger issue? And even I want you to go into, maybe you're heading there, but I want you to go into the fact that like our town council folk can't or don't speak to each other.
No, and I think that was the most awkward part, like, especially when they had to vote in a new vice mayor, because it was part of the meeting, it being a new year, and that's, like, the first thing that they do.
Uh-huh.
So we had to watch them switch nameplates and everything, although, like, I'll go into it later, but, like, they literally switched the nameplates in, like, chairs, but at Chandler, they did the
They
same
stayed.
thing, but they stayed,
Yes.
and it was, like, it was completely
It
different,
was
but
like it's more just like a circus.
yeah. So it was weird, especially because the first when they were doing that, um, one of the members, he pretty much told the mayor that his legal advised him not to talk to her. So that was one of the first comments off the like right off the beginning of the meeting, and we're like, "Wait,
And
what?"
it was on recorded mic'd. It wasn't like they were out in the hallway and someone overheard them say, "Hey,
Yeah.
my legal said I'm not allowed to talk to you." It was a councilman to the mayor in the middle of the meeting said that.
Yeah, like
So then
he
you're like,
literally
"What the hell's going on?"
his mic literally turned on and we all heard it. Like it was mic'd. And so we're sitting there And then we're all looking at each other. We were on Google in the town meeting, like, is there lawsuits going on? Like, we were searching stuff, like, everyone was so confused. So we're sitting there staring at each other, like, what is going on? And so there was between that comment and then apparently, especially with the teen violence, from what I got of the grasp of all of it is once two council members approach another council member, if there's 2 or more, so in this case there was 3, then those 2 people can no longer talk to that person, and so now it, like, froze the conversation unless they're at a town council meeting. I don't know the logistics and legality of all of that, but it seemed completely stupid of why they never get anything accomplished, but at the same time,
Yes.
it blew my mind because I felt like it was like an excuse and shift blaming because then we went to the Chandler Town Council and they operated just fine and all knew what was going on and talked to each
Right.
other. So I don't really know if I don't know what Gilbert's got going on, but it was just weird. And then at the very end, once they voted in the subcommittee, um, then it was like that was the green light to where all the mics, like, lit up, and they all went around and said, like, "We couldn't talk about this prior because this, and this, and these are the Arizona rules and laws of what we have to follow." And so, that was a whole hot mess, but yeah, it was a lot of us, and the only reason why it went to finally a vote was because one of the dads in the audience with us, he literally interrupted the meeting and yelled out loud to the mayor, basically told her, like, stop dragging her feet. Like, we need to get something done because she kept trying to go back and forth and gaslighting and saying, well, this wasn't on the agenda. We have to refer back to this and who's going to be on this committee. And so then they, with one of the other council members, she's like, well, can we have two subcommittees on this? And we're like, we can't even get you guys to agree on one. How are we going to
Right.
get two?
Because she wanted a human trafficking task force because it had to be, that's what month it is right now, is that, and they did a whole thing at the beginning of the event, which obviously us coming in from the human trafficking side is great, except this isn't human trafficking, although certainly I'm sure that there is trafficking of stuff and
Yeah.
probably weapons and exploitation. I'm sure all the things are there. This is about teen safety.
Although, you know me, and I do want to say this before we go
Yes.
back into teen violence, is I was sitting there and prior to the meeting, again, I didn't know if I was speaking, I didn't get confirmation or anything. So I had gotten stopped in the parking lot, talked to Channel 12, and then I'm going in and I'm sitting there and I'm asking one of the parents, like, hey, did you get a confirmation like about if you're speaking or not? And so long story short, I go check in and the lady's like, oh, well, did you send an email? I was like, yeah, like a week ago, but I never got anything back. So I sent one again, like at 5:15, like never got anything back. So like I'm checking in or like, can I still speak? So then she tells me yes. She's like, she searches and she's like, oh my gosh, here's your email. And so then they apologize. And so then
You can't even check emails properly.
so we're sitting there and I text Becky and I wasn't going to talk about human trafficking. Although we like red flags and what we're seeing in these cases, um I will say allegedly there might be something tied to drug trafficking eventually once all comes out allegedly.
Mhm.
So with that, I wasn't gonna talk about anything tied to human trafficking, drug trafficking, nothing, because a lot of people's brains will go like they're not ready for this
Yeah.
conversation.
No, they really, people are still really just thinking, and we don't have confirmation on this, and like Bridget said, this is all alleged information, but they're really just thinking it's a bunch of crazy kids that are beating up other kids, and mom and dad of the one that's kind of the highest, they're worth $42 million. They don't just go around, they go around and pay off whatever their kids do. They have lawyers ready for these children to do stupid shit. The older son is already in trouble for selling fentanyl laced vape pens.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Thank you.
So
Um,
so yeah, we that conversation, a lot of people, especially there's grieving going on, there's a lot of tragedy in our communities. And so knowing what we know and the patterns we're seeing, like us two have a lot of behind the scenes conversations and picking up on red flags and things that we're seeing, um, and things that stick out. And so with that conversation, I'm sitting there and I hear the mayor declare, not in our city, Human Trafficking Awareness Month. And she declares how Gilbert is going to be taking a stand. And me in my head, I'm like, you can't even protect the teens. Like, we
Right.
can't even solve teen violence. How in the world are you going to
Take this on.
take this on? So, us being from Gilbert and being so boots on the ground with human trafficking and being involved in the anti-human trafficking movement, I was like, no, that's our little baby, and we're so
Right.
protective of that." And so I like immediately pull up my notes and I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, that's gonna be my ending, the human trafficking stat. And so I think like my favorite part of speaking was me knowing what I was about to say, but then also seeing the mayor's face, especially when I went into the depths of like drug trafficking and like even the human trafficking stat. Like I could still see like her face and like her eyeballs. Like I could still see that.
I wish that they had video of her because all I saw was you, and I was like, "Oh, can someone pan the council?"
And so I just remember, like, looking up and, like, seeing her face, and I was just like, "Okay, Bridget, keep going." But so that's the only reason why I tied the 2 together, but at the same time, like, I was really just trying to be respectful of the youth in the community, and then as well as the families, especially because, again, these cases continue to grow, and as we've heard, um, apparently in the Gilbert Goons, there's anywhere from 30 to allegedly 50 people involved in these groups. And then hearing at town council, there's listening to Katie McPherson's speech, there's 3 active groups in the community. And
Jesus.
so there's not like a for sure set amount that was disclosed of how many people are in those groups. But as we're seeing all the videos of the teen violence that have of all the assaults that have surfaced all over social media, it's not just 1 or 2 kids, and how they
Oh,
come up
no.
and attack is so brutal, and it happens so quick.
And the craziest part about it is that there isn't any it's funny in the relation of, like, human trafficking because there is no one type of kid. It's different schools, different religions, all teenagers, but different ages. Like, there's not one group of, like, all these kids go to this school or all these kids live in this town. It's all over this area.
Yeah. And one thing that's really blown my mind is having some of the conversations with the community, even amongst us at the walks and at the town council meetings and the different events going on in the community. I love how the community has showed up, not only for the family, but for the youth and as a community, and really continue to apply the pressure and demand accountability out of the law enforcement, out of the school districts. And so even amongst the community and the parents themselves. And so that's
Yeah.
one thing is there's so many people, there's a lot of fear still, but with that fear, there's a lot of people who are talking. And so
Yes.
that makes me happy, especially because we often talk about like have these conversations with your kids, know what's going on. But one thing that's really been mind blowing to me is the constant talking about the gaming and what's going on in the gaming. And a lot of these kids, whether they're under the influence of drugs and alcohol, and not by any means saying that that is an excuse, not dismissing anything, but that also goes to a deeper conversation of what is going on in these kids' houses.
Yes.
Where are the parents? And as far as even knowing the signs, if your kid is isolating and having those conversations of how are these kids, again, a lot of these kids are student athletes. So what blows my mind is they're performing at the highest level, but then also you look at their home situation and you look at the violence and
Or
then
just neglect, like,
yeah, the neglect.
here, I'm just gonna throw money at it.
Mhm. So I think that's also the scary part too, is because we're starting to see the adverse childhood and the trauma responses of all of that aspect come out. And parents, even the kids who witness certain things, whether they were at a party or they're suffering in silence, there's so much trauma going on in the mental health side. I think it's sad because the community is there together, but at the same time, they're not r they don't understand how to help or what
It
to do.
Yeah, so it's interesting, I didn't tell you this story, I was at the dollar store the other day, and, of course, the 2 kids that were working the cash register, they were, I would say 16, 17, something around there, they could obviously drive
Yeah.
themselves to work, and all of a sudden, I hear this one kid, he's like, "Who came up with the name Gilbert Goons?" He goes, "Back in Chicago, they would have had their ass kicked for a name like that." And I started laughing. And I said, "The whole thing is just ridiculous." And they were kind of talking back and forth about wherever and who what it was. And of course, me being me, I talked to everybody and I was like, yeah, the whole thing is just really ridiculous. Like, I feel bad for you guys that you're even stuck in this, that you um, can't go out and just have fun with your friends for fear of like what they're gonna do. And this kid's like, yeah, he goes, they're just a bunch of bullies. He goes, they hide in the dark until no one's around, and then they use brass knuckles and they're beating the crap out of people and whatever. He's like, "Yeah, I was supposed to go to that party. My mom wouldn't let me go to that party." I said, "God bless your mother for not letting you go to that party." And he goes, "Yeah, she said if I ever get a video, I better show her immediately." And I said, "Your mom's a good mom." I said, "You're right. I said, just know us parents, we're trying to get you a safe place to just be kids." I said, "I'm sorry you have to go through all of this. This sucks." And you
Yeah.
could kind of feel like a palpable just breath where it's like people hear us.
Mhm.
And I think you're right. We have all of these conversations as adults between adults, and our kids hear us.
Yeah.
Like, whether they're with us or not, or they just hear us talking,
Or
it,
watching it on social media.
or watching it, or talking about it at school, or whatever. And then we get these people that are coming in and gaslighting them on top of it. Like, that didn't happen, or no, it isn't going on, or why do you think that kid's bad, or you don't know what you're talking about. When these kids have already been put in a situation that is horrifically traumatizing as it is, and even if you weren't there, even if you weren't one of these kids that has had an encounter, do you want to go out with your friends to an In-N-Out burger down the street where multiple times these kids have pounded the crap out of other kids? No.
Even downtown Gilbert, and that's one thing that blows my mind is also hearing even the police gaslight a lot of the families and the
Yep.
kids because it's like you look at it from a legal standpoint and you're like, but why were these cases closed? Or they're asking the public for more videos and help. Do you know how many cameras are in downtown?
If you stole a car, they'd find your ass.
Absolutely, and just knowing and living by downtown Gilbert, like, that's my backyard, like, do you know how many cops constantly are down there and how many cameras are up in those parking garages? Like, everyone knows that the teen hangout is literally the last 2 sections of all the parking structures, and they sit up there and they vape and they do drag racing up there, and, like, it's everyone knows in the town.
Everyone knows it except for them magically. And that's part of the problem that we have. And I am not going to blame our specific police department because I am sure it happens everywhere. But these people with money that you turn a blind eye. It's a lot of paperwork and a lot of shit to go up there every night and make sure that these kids are doing what they're supposed to do, especially if you bring them home and mom and dad get mad that you interrupted their playtime.
Absolutely. The amount of stuff that I've seen as a parent down there, like, I'm like, "Oh my."
Right.
Like, especially on Halloween, there was, like, a lot of little girls out there half naked, like, taking selfies, doing, like I'm like, "Please don't be on OnlyFans." But anyway,
I think of all of these different things that are going on between, we had girls and boys bathrooms and all the different things, that's for another podcast, but of all the things that are going on in this town, in everybody's town, the thing that I am probably the most sad about is how wimpy parents are.
yeah.
Now, I'm not saying we need to go back to beating the shit out of our kids, although, it probably would help, but I'm not saying we need to do that. But we've come to this place where we are now, um, what is it that they call it, where it not caring parent. Can't come up with it. I was thinking about it this morning, but like gentle parenting.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And I get the concept, and I am for the basic theory of gentle parenting. I think you need to listen to your kid. I think you need to be aware and interactive and attached to your child. But we don't, if your kid's throwing a fit in the Target, we don't need to sit down on the floor with them and kumbaya. And nor do we have to give them the toy that they're screaming on the floor about. There has to be boundaries, there has to be rules, and there has to be consequences to behavior. But
Yeah.
we've now gone to this place where um if your kid does something bad, oh, I mean, Johnny, he's just really having a tough time now, and I think we just need to overlook it. No, because the world doesn't give a shit if Johnny is having a tough time. Nobody cares. And if we don't teach our kids and make sure that they have the right tools for the world, the world will eat them alive.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're seeing. And we literally, I don't know if I told you, I think I told you this. So I was giving Peyton, he left his phone at home when he went to band. And normally I wouldn't care. I'd be like, keep your damn phone home. You don't need it anyway. But I need to know when he's done. So we were driving by, and I went and I put it in his backpack so that when he came back, he would know he had it. And he's sitting there, and he told me later, he's like, I was so excited you brought my phone because I wanted to show someone something or whatever. And his bandmate said to him, you trust your mom with your phone?
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean you trust your mom with your phone? I said, here's the deal, buddy. I trust you with my phone. And he's kind of like, well, yeah, I said, because it belongs to me. I can see everything on that phone if I want to see everything on that phone. And if I find something that I don't like, you don't have a phone anymore.
Mhm.
And that's how we live. Every single morning when he is getting ready, I take his phone, I unlock it, I read through the shit that is usually nonsense and stupidity. I look at what the directors of the band maybe said to him, and I have a conversation before that day ever starts. So and so said something about a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. What? And he'll go, oh, that was from yesterday. This happened, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, I just got a story. I already know what's happening. It's stupid, but I know what's happening. Okay, your director said that you have to do this, and this. Not only does it keep me involved and keep me aware of what is going on and what he could have missed, he knows all I have to do is unlock it, and I have access to everything. Now that doesn't mean that his friends couldn't say something, or I couldn't find something out that I didn't like or whatever. But he came up to me later that night and he says, "Thank you for trusting me with your phone." And I said, "Thank you for being trustworthy enough to have my phone." And there are so many people that do not think that way. Like, that phone belongs to me. And if you're acting like a dumbass and because you're watching too many YouTube videos or whatever, guess what? You don't get your phone anymore. You're on a YouTube detox.
Absolutely. Well, too, and another thing with that is your kid knows you're engaged in those conversations. So when he actually needs something, like a more serious
Mhm.
conversation, he already has that soft place to land with you. But
Yep.
also, we've also talked about apps like Bark and
Yes.
having those on your phone, and even just knowing what the signs when it comes to what these emojis mean, as
Yep.
many kids do not socialize in real life. A lot of it is done through the apps or like Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, the gaming, especially anything nowadays with chat features. all, which is pretty much everything,
Everything. Mhm.
is an open door for a conversation with someone that they don't know. And as we've talked about even on our podcast before with my daughter, is she was given a burner phone because she lost her social media, or I never had social media for her. She decided to create it. And so we've had those conversations of where that took her mentally, and even being on campus and everything we went through with being at, I would say specifically at the culture we were at ALA. Based on our experience, it was very cult-like, and so at that campus, she went down a very dark path, and with that campus, I was actively in the school and having conversations and saying,
Yep.
"Why does she have so many tardies? What is going on? I'm not bringing her late. How is she getting from this class to this class late all the time? Where's the security? These kids are TikToking." I had burner accounts and I was under like on disclosed name watching these kids social media and showing the school, and between the school was aware of the vaping going on allegedly on campus, as well as the alcohol allegedly on campus as well. And so with that is seeing all this come up, knowing we were talking about it
Yes.
previously on our
Yes.
podcast, but now seeing how big this is, like, I feel for all of the parents because I know what it took my daughter to get out of those thoughts, but then I've had to even call, when it comes to the parenting, I even had to call the cops on my own kid
Mhm.
because she went into this whole different person that I did not know. And she, between the grooming and just the mental manipulation that she was under at that point, it was where she was trying to turn things on me. And so there was one situation where she was talking back and she said something and she tried to like swing at me, and I like popped her mouth and was like, "Excuse me, you're not going to disrespect me." Well, according to teens nowadays and kids, that's child abuse. Like, no.
No, no, let me tell you what that is.
Yeah. So I was like, "You're not going to try to scare me and say, 'Oh, I'm going to call.'" I don't know why AI keeps bringing these up, but
Because you did this and did that.
yeah.
That's
So
weird. Get out of our podcast, you weird thing.
I was like, "You're not gonna call or try to threaten me with the cops or this and that. So I'm gonna call on myself. I'm gonna call on you."
Mhm.
And so I flipped the script on her and was like, "No, this is what it is." And so the cops did come out, and there's a time where she just took off because she didn't like the answer no, and she didn't get her way, and it was over something stupid like ice
Of
cream.
course.
I don't know, something stupid. So she took off, and I ended up reporting her as a runaway. And so Gilbert PD came out, and they went and they met with her, and I was like, "Well, I got her back home, but I still want you to come out." So they sat with us and they gave her like a little counseling like pamphlet, and then told her like, "No, these are the laws and this is child abuse and this is not what your mom's doing." And so they gave her the laws, but then they also went over like, "Hey, if you keep acting like this and having this behavior, by the time you get to this point, like now that's juvenile." And so we started having those conversations. And so eventually pulled her out of ALA and she's in a better place now. But even just knowing as a parent, you have to set the boundaries and you can't be your kids' friends. As so many parents want to be their kids' friends, as well as because of, we often talk about even social media and the culture. And there's a point where parents were TikToking with their kids and trying to get the clout and the likes and go viral. And so we're seeing literally the aftermath of all of that. And so not being afraid to set those boundaries and really parent your children and being present, because so
Yeah.
many kids are just literally crying out for help and wanting the presence of their parents.
Right. They want to see that we are a generation that's going to help them,
Yep.
whatever it is. And it could be something like I am known in the band world as the mom that sends the email, because whether it's the press box music being too loud and I can't hear the band on the field, like I'm always the one that is sending the email. And it literally it's getting to a point where we can't be afraid to step in. I'm not afraid to hurt somebody's feelings because my intentions are not to hurt someone's feelings. My intentions are to stick up for my son or his friends or other students that are there. My intention is not to hurt that one or two students that are doing the thing, or the principal who got it wrong, or like, I'm never rude. I'm not trying to be rude. But we've gotta stop, we have to start standing up, because then we sit here and we bitch about where is this world going and no one's ever saying anything, but you're never the one to do it. So you want someone else to save this world, but you're not willing to step up even for your own kids and be mama bear or papa bear and actually write an email or step in or go on a walk or fight for what's going on. But then you expect our kids to be strong enough to do it. Like, I literally, we had this conversation the other day in our house because I have 2 boys, and I said, "Out of all of you gentlemen, I have the biggest, clangiest steel balls out of everybody in this house." And they just laughed, and I was like, "Don't forget it, because I will fight to the death. That's what God has given me as a calling.
Yep.
Don't mess with me. Now I'll let it go for a little bit. Like, I'm not gonna fight everybody all the time. You gotta let it get to that point."
Deserve it.
Yeah, you have to deserve it. But
Pick and choose your battles.
yes, but it's amazing to me, and this is something that I really want to reiterate. If you have this calling to be the leader, if you have the calling to advocate for people, do it. Because once you do, everybody else feels safe doing it too.
Mhm.
And now you've got a group of people that are following in your footsteps, but no one ever wants to be that leader. Someone has to.
And you'll see it, like, we've seen it in our kids where they don't always like hearing about us talking about all the awareness and prevention 24/7, but at the same time, they know what to do if they're in a situation, and they're also watching and protecting their friends as well. And so that's one thing that I've seen amongst my daughter and her friends is they are watching their surroundings and looking out for one another and having those conversations even amongst themselves of what to look out for, or even if it's just bullying or seeing a kid left out,
Same.
like
Mhm.
stepping in and going and being that friend, especially like teen suicide is on the rise right now, and so many suffering in silence. And so, even if it's coming to me and saying, or to one of their other friends come to me and say, "Hey, what do we do in this situation? This kid's posting this on Snapchat," or "This is a situation." And so having those conversations and knowing that at least they have, if they don't feel comfortable going to someone at home or a trusted adult figure, at least they know that they have either a friend or a friend's mom or dad, whoever, or a coach, whoever that may be. So if you take that role on as a leader and really pour into these kids, they're going to remember you, especially in the time of tragedy right now. And they just want to be heard, they want to be seen. And that's one thing of even just having those, saying those little words to your child of, "I love you, I hear you, I see you," or just sitting with them for 5 minutes. And if it's watching them play gaming, okay, so be it. I know
Right.
when my daughter got an Xbox, I'm not a fan of this Xbox thing. For the holidays, she got one from a family member, and it's even me walking in and I'm like, "Hey, who are you talking to?" And so like her friends know, like, "Hey, Miss Vega," they know I'm on
That's
there, and
awesome.
they'll talk to me and she'll be like, "Okay, mom, you're done talking to my friends."
See, and
Um,
I love that, and it happens in the band too. They're like, "Hi, Mrs. Shawcheck, how are you?" And it's like,
yeah.
that's what I want. I need you to know that I'm here and I'm gonna fight for you, or I'm gonna fight for you. I'm gonna fight for you, and if you need a hug, I'm here for a hug.
Exactly, and that's one thing too of so many people say, "Well, what can we do right now? And how do we respond to all the tragedy and everything going in our community?" Honestly, right now, those are simple things like love on the youth, be there, support them. Do not force conversations out of them, but be there and be present. That way they know that they have someone. They may just need a hug. There's so much heaviness going on, not only in the world, but especially in our communities and in our own backyards.
And I would add to that a couple things. I think that's exactly it is we need to be loving in our house. We need to start in our house and then the world will fix itself. And we've talked about that before, but like Peyton and I, we have conversations about what happens in the band all the time. And we have transgendered kids, we have not nice kids, we got all sorts of gamut of things. And he's just the quiet one. Like he doesn't want to get involved, he doesn't want to rock the boat, but he's also very much like me where he just gets mad. Like I want to do something, but he's too timid to do it. And so I give him speaking points. Does he use them? No, not really. He's got to let it kind of fester a little bit till he's ready to use it again. But I've seen him in the last couple months just really start to step in. And even little things like telling people, like telling the senior, dude, that's not funny anymore. Knock it off.
Yep.
Like that takes guts for a kid to tell another kid to shut up. And so once that happens, then other people can do it. And again, being that first one, but it really starts with those conversations.
Mhm.
We've also brought in every night, we started the beginning of the year, but every night we bring in devotional. All four of us sit down in the hallway. We talk about it's like a teen guys devotional thing, but it talks about all the things. It's a 3-minute devotional. It prays. We're all sitting together as a family and it brings up conversation. The other thing I found out that I thought was really cool that Peyton was doing and an idea for other kids is he watches the street pastors. So the people who go out and they stand in the street when it's a gay pride parade or it's at maybe not, he doesn't watch abortion clinics, but whatever, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it allows him to get speaking points on how a pastor, a godly person would speak to someone lovingly about how he disagrees with them. And I
Wow.
don't know that he uses it. Like, I don't know.
No, it's planting the seeds.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's things
I'd
like that,
rather
like
I'd rather that than watching, like, all the
any
demonic.
well that or whatever goofy nonsense they watch otherwise. But again, like there's something that there really is something to praying with and over your family. And
Absolutely.
we've talked about that before where you want to start somewhere, open the Bible.
Mhm.
And you don't have to read the Bible cover to cover, although it's very interesting soap opera level stuff. Open an app, get a prayer book, start journaling. There's I have an app and I talk about it all the time on here. I have the Bible app and I read it every morning and every night, and I'm at somewhere like 1,233 consecutive days of reading the Bible. It is life changing,
Absolutely.
but it starts with 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Read, pick
And
your
it's
topic that you want.
Yep, and it starts with us and starts in our homes, and
Yep.
we often talk about, some things that we've done in our house as well is just like Becky, of course, without our faith is our foundation. Without that, would not be where we are today. And so daily devotional, I also let my daughter, especially as she was going through all the, um, s dark part of the time she was
Yep. Right.
in, I would say one thing that helped her was it really went back to having that conversation with her of projection. Like you can sit here and blame me for being this kind of parent and say, I'm not so and so's mom. Sorry, like that's not me. And so it really went down to like, if this is your insecurity or this is what you're struggling with, like, do you even know what that word means? Anxiety. And
Right.
it went back to what does that mean? What is your definition? It went to, are you saying it because that's something you're experiencing? Or is it because this is the culture and the
The
trend,
word.
the
Mhm.
word that's being used amongst the community that you're in? And so really breaking down those words, but then also what is the fear around why you respond to certain things the way you do and the emotions behind it. And so taking that and putting the power back in her hands and saying, no, you have to make this decision. If you want to be better, you have to do better. And so really challenging herself mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, to really take ownership of her actions and saying, okay, you were the really sweet one, but also you're bullying. Like I can see
Mm,
like you're adding
mm,
to this. And
mm.
so calling that behavior out too and not just saying no, not my kid. Like no, like look on the influence and who
Right.
they're around. And so um it
And
went
why wouldn't it be your kid? Like that, I mean,
yeah,
any sort of influence, and I don't mean your kid, I just mean
I
in
know,
general,
I know what you meant.
that that like why wouldn't it be? Because you go to school and they're influenced by some really not great influences, whether it's things they learned or kids that they're around or whatever. Why wouldn't it be your kid? And now it's your responsibility to make sure that they're reminded that that's not really who they are or who they want to be. But your kid absolutely could do it. Any one of our kids could be that bully or that kid.
Yeah. And so just like Becky, even with herself and her kids, we both went back to like my daughter. She chose to do the 75-day hard and she took out the not eating Takis. Like even though I wouldn't buy it, her friends would get it. They have a gas station, they have access to it right there in their school campus. And so um taking the red dyes away, different things of even letting her pick out the journal and saying, like, this is me committing to this. There's different things between the youth group, getting involved at the church, serving in your own communities, whether it's like one thing I love about her school is they have to have X amount of volunteer hours
Oh,
every
nice.
semester. And so whether it was helping at nonprofits or school events, just getting involved in the community, and then they have to go and do community service projects.
I have a walk in a couple weeks that she could get some hours for.
Oh, I'll tell her. They do need hours for this semester, I'll tell her.
Hey, I'll happily take someone to hold the sign.
So if you need volunteers, let us know. If your kids need community service hours, let us know. We'll always find a space for them. But yeah, little things like that of just even putting it back in your child's hands and being there with them as they're going through these different experiences. Mind you, they also have hormones. They're teens, like they're
It's
still children.
crazy.
And so remembering that too, and we're not the perfect parents. We don't have it all together. We learn as we go. Um,
But I think I'm glad you said that because you're right. We don't know what we're doing, but we are different than we were years ago.
absolutely.
And to be able to get your child to react and do the things that of the way that you want them to be, you have to reflect that. So
Mhm.
if you're running around like a chicken with their head cut off and you're screaming and yelling and doing all of these things, how else are they going to respond? They don't see you journaling, they don't see you in a Bible, they don't see you at church volunteering. You can't, again, it's like when I was learning to drive and my dad, I would say, "Why are you doing that?" And he'd say, "Well, do as I say, not as I do." You
Mhm.
can't do that. That doesn't work. And so you as the parent have got to do your own work and drudge up all your crap because
Mhm.
you're just continuing generational shit if you don't heal yourself.
Yep.
And they need you as a role model. And the reason Bridget could do all of that is because she has been journaling for years and she's been in the Bible for years and she's volunteered for years and she's learned about herself, all the things she doesn't want to be like, so that when she now has a daughter and is in a bad situation, can say, "All right, we're gonna figure this out and God's gonna help me." Because if all you're doing is screaming, you want to know what that would have done to her daughter? Peace.
And it really did take me screaming though,
Oh, I'm sure it did. You needed boundaries for sure.
because like I it takes a lot to get me mad, but then I blew up exactly this time last year,
Yep.
literally. This time last year, I blew up on everybody and cut so many people off, and
Oh,
God was
no, that was fun. That was fun to watch. Bridget found her voice and it was cool.
I had it, but it was just like
It was,
roar, like mama, it was the mama bear cry you don't mess with. That's all.
yes, yes,
And so
they messed with the claws.
yeah, so all of the claws came out on everybody from work to family life to everything, advocacy space, everything. Um, and so it was just like in that season, it was like God told me, like, nope, be still. Like, you're
Yep,
done. Be silent. As much as I wanted to do advocacy stuff and podcasting, Becky's like, nope, shutting the
yep,
door.
we're closing it, we're done.
She
Yeah.
she set her boundary and so there's just different things where you have to embrace that season, and I will say for sure in the season that I've been in, and we before we go back even into teen violence off subject, we were talking about our words of the year, and like
Mhm,
my word is peace, because literally like there are so many situations I've been in this past year where it's mind blowing to me that God has literally given me a peace that I do not understand, but I love it. And it
mhm,
surpasses everything. And so there's some situations where I'm like, okay, this is a test. Like, whatever, keep going. And just sitting, or certain conversations where I just laugh, like, and I look up and, like, okay, God, you got jokes today. And so there's just so many, the perspective shift has really changed. But that is one thing is literally finding your voice in the and setting those boundaries, but literally like the mama bear cry and not being afraid to tell other people no
mhm.
and really sticking to those boundaries. Don't get me wrong, you still get tested, but it literally took like this time last year where I always did things um to where there was boundaries, but at the same time it was just like, okay, well, I'll go out of respect to this. And now I'm just like, no, absolutely not. If
No, you
it's
don't respect me, we gotta start that way.
absolutely.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah,
what's your word of the year?
my word of the year is strength. Because last year mine was surrender. Because so we kind of had the both similar kind of year where it was just, all right, we're gonna see what happens and kind of figure it out. And it was definitely a year of surrendering. Like, do I go back to work? Do I keep doing church stuff? Do like where am I going? What am I supposed to do? How do we do things with the kids? Where's my health going? All the different stuff. And you just kind of you give it to God and God takes care of it and figures it out. And this year, like right around the new year, I just got this like wave of not strength, but like energy where I was like, all right, I'm doing more contract work so I can help with the household. I'm going to start this project where I can maybe get some passive income. We're going to create this board at church. We're going to do these things. And there are boundaries around all of that, but it's now instead of an overwhelming feeling or an exhausted feeling, it's this is what I'm meant to do and this is how I'm meant to do it. And God is going to give me strength through all of it. And it's funny because I see posts that kind of talk about Christianity and they'll say things like, people always say that if you're not at peace with something, then it's not from God. But that's not true because the Bible says this, this, and this. I'm not saying that things aren't hard, and I'm not saying that things don't scare me or that things don't annoy me ever. But there's a set, like Bridget said, there is a peace beyond all understanding that when you are doing the calling God gives you, you know you're on the right path.
Absolutely.
So
And
we're gonna keep doing what we're doing this year. We're gonna live in peace and we're gonna live in our strength. And then we'll come back next year and tell you if it worked.
you'll be along the journey with us watching it all. Come
Yeah, right. But for now, our strength and our peace is coming from fighting for these teens, because and all kids. I mean, yes, they're all teens right now, and this is a really hard time for these kids, but and we'll beat it till it's dead again. And I have a training next month for our community to talk about this as well. But like if you're not in your home talking to your kid, engaging with your kid, I don't care if your kid is 2 years old, get your ass down on the ground, build the blocks, do the thing. Because if they come to you with a piece of paper and you ignore them, or you say just a minute, or you don't listen to what they're saying, and again, I'm a busy mom. I understand what give me just a minute means, but then you go back and you actually engage with them. Okay, thank you for giving me 2 minutes. What did you want to show me? That is how you get a 16-year-old to come talk to you,
Mhm.
because you gave them and you gave attention to them when they were little. Okay, so Becky, my kid is now 13 and I didn't do any of that. What do I do now? Start listening now.
Mhm.
Watch their stupid Minecraft video, sit and watch some YouTube thing that they think is funny, color a picture with them, go outside and throw a baseball with whatever it is that you would have said, no, not now. Stop and do that. The other thing is, respect their time. How would you like to be like, okay, time to get off your phone, we're done, or time to be done with that game, we're done? I'm in I'm in the middle of something. Nobody wants to just be abruptly ended on anything. And so, yes, you're the parent and yes, you end it. And yes, sometimes it's like, I already told you, but say, hey guys, 5 minutes. When this video's done, I need you to plug your phone in or whatever. Okay, cool, we'll do that. All right, you watch 5 minutes. Now you can say, I gave you 5 minutes, you're up, and you pull the phone.
Mhm.
But they give the same respect back to you. They also will call you out on your shit then when you don't do it. You said
Yeah.
5 minutes and I didn't do whatever. So, but really it's that attachment, that connection. If you don't feel comfortable attaching with your child, fix yourself.
Or they'll attach to this
Tur-
little thing,
Yes, yes.
and you don't know what's going on in this. If you don't know your kid's password, there's conversations in this phone you do not probably want to see, or
But
like
need to.
yeah, or they don't have that relationship, which that's a scary thing because sextortion and the blackmail and the nudes going around right now, especially on Snapchat,
These poor children.
there's a lot, and I don't we don't say that and share that because we don't wanna put fear in you. Use it to empower your child.
Yes,
There's ways to
yes.
have conversations around these devices, and like Becky just said, okay, at 8:30, for example, phones come out, no phones are going in the room. They're
Yep.
staying all of our phones are in a mutual area, all of our
Yep.
phones plug in, and literally modeling that, and if you want your kid to respect you when you talk to them, don't be sitting there like this when they're trying to talk to you and you're completely ignoring them what they're saying. Like give them that same respect. But also too around the technology is empowering them and teaching them the digital footprint
Yep.
and how to even keep themselves safe. Because one thing, and Becky, if you want to share it at the conference you were at around technology and even moms and posting our kids online and how
Just gonna say
quick
that.
they can get groomed or even just having their face on social media. And there's a lot of CSAM and CSEM. For those of you who don't know that, it's child sexual abuse material and child sexual exploitation material. So just remembering like to protect your kids' digital footprint as well.
Exactly. And that doesn't mean you never share your kid's picture. But one of the things before I even get into sharing social media and how scary that can be, um, there's something, again, we have for going back into the school books, but Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And what happens when these predators, and I wish I had the paper from the conference with me because he made, actually, I have it on my phone. So I'm going to quickly look it up because he made such a good comment about three types of people. Um, sorry. Oh, so you have vulnerability. There are people who look for vulnerabilities to exploit when they're talking to kids. You have perverts, predators, and pimps. And those could be any sort of person. So immediately your brain's like, oh, that's a creepy guy around the corner. No, it could be the pastor. Like you have no idea. It could be the eighth grade teacher. Like all of the people could be a pervert, a predator, or a pimp. Now, the idea is, and this is why we generally get the idea that like the most exploited or trafficked children are poor because that's the largest vulnerability. So if someone can come in and say, I'll give you food and shelter, or I'll give you a car, or I'll give you this, that's a very large need. Like, I'm hungry and I'm cold. Of course, I'm going to want to take someone up on the very basic bottom need. If you have shelter and you have food, you're living pretty good in this world. But then what happens is, oh, I gave you food, now you owe me XYZ. And that's how they get into trafficking. That's how they get stuck because that bar keeps being raised and they are now walking the streets of whatever city they are, or they are at the neighbor's house doing whatever. Again, another podcast. But where we look at our kids, or at least my socioeconomic class, is our kids have food and shelter. They have all of the clothes that they need. They're somewhere up the rung. But do they have love and attention? Because if they don't have love and attention, like Bridget said, they're just going to go right here and they're going to find it. And all these people have to do is wait for someone on a social media post to say, ugh, my mom.
Yep.
Or can you believe what my dad said today? Or I can't believe I can't go to this concert. And now some pervert, predator, or pimp just found their way into your daughter, your son's world. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. My mom doesn't let me go to that concert either. Can you believe it? Blah, 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 blah. Now they're acting like they're also a 14-year-old boy, and they're now talking to your son or daughter about the same sort of stuff. And guess what? They're now going to create an attachment. And if you're not paying attention, you won't see them pull away. You won't see them change the way that they act. You won't really notice anything different, and you won't know why. And so you have no cover on you have no protection on your phone. You don't know where. Now the worst part is things like Bark. I saw this, Katie McPherson posted this. Snapchat, Roblox, and TikTok. So if your kids are on those, you better watch yourself. Bark can't get in there. They don't let them in as a third party because they erase things and they can get away with a bunch of stuff. So if your kids are on Roblox, my kids are, I'm not going to say anything. Turn off the chat feature. There's no reason they need to be talking to anybody. Luckily, my boys usually create a private server, so it's only the two of them. They don't like other humans, so I'm in a better world. But because they know about it, but that's what these people are looking for, and they are patient as hell.
It's
These
slow
people,
and methodical.
yeah, some of these guys, some of it's quick. It's like, hey, send me a nude, whatever. Some of them will go on and pretend that they are 14-year-old kids and send pictures of themselves. And here's where it gets scary. If your kids have social media, and let's just say they have social media and I'm on social media and I follow them so that I can make sure what's going on. Well, guess what? Now they have your entire life. They know
Mhm.
where you live. They can know where you live. They can know what school they go to because you posted blah, blah, blah. And don't get me wrong, I am not saying anything because I do all these things. My kids don't have social media, but we do have, hey, here's the car wash that's happening, or here's whatever. If someone came on and wanted to, they could know where my children went to school. But we've got to be very careful and we've got to know that these people are smart. It's what they do. It's their business. If they can sell a girl for $250,000 a year, they'll be patient for 3 or 4 months.
Yep.
We have to step up and you want to change the world. You're worried about the election. You're worried about where this world is going. Go home.
Literally.
Literally. Start at home.
And even with that conversation too, another thing that we talk about in Protect Young Eyes, Red Light Rebellion, and Bark have talked about it, is even doing contracts with the technology
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
child coming together and having that conversation and having the conversation around digital safety and if whether it's lying or doing something you aren't supposed to be doing, what discipline looks like, and there's a contract and
Yep.
everyone signs it. And so just opening those conversations are just some other things that we've done in our households. um, and honestly, we're just trying to share things that we've done or that from resources we
Heard. Mm-hmm.
refer to, especially because there's so much going on in the community and so many people are like, well, where do I start? And then you see what's blown my mind is even seeing like law enforcement and the schools say, especially law enforcement, that they can't speak on certain topics because they're waiting for a thorough investigation, blah 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 blah. But it's like, no, these kids still have to function with these kids. As we heard at Chandler Town Council, one of the dads who got up and spoke and said one of the kids who allegedly assaulted Preston is in the daughter's classroom still till this day, sitting next to the daughter in school. And so it's like then you have the fear of that and those kids and retaliation and bullying, or just knowing allegedly this kid is tied to a really big case. Now what do I do? Like, dad, mom, I have to sit with this kid in class, and there's no protection from law, there's no protection from the school. And so from those conversations of even just making sure your child, like checking in with your child every day, and not forcing conversations, but also do know that that's just something that they're suffering in silence, whether they want to say they're fearful or not.
Right.
Like, there's so many conversations where a lot of kids and the parents, you've heard, the parents are going to meetings and the kids are like, I don't really want my mom to be known that she's there because they fear of retaliation or different things like that. And it's really sad it's come to that. But at the
Yep.
same time, law enforcement, like, there are numbers and different resources, whether it's like mental health advocates or different resources like Starbright Foundation, Red Light Rebellion, where you can go and learn prevention and different topics as a parent to equip yourself with the knowledge so then you can then share it with your kids and have these conversations. Or even survivors that we've posted on our pages of how to have these conversations with the kids as well. So we're just trying to do our part and share what we know and what we've learned by not having it all together, and
Right.
literally the whole mess in the middle of learning as we go. And what we were woken up to years ago, but now we're seeing it literally even more in our own backyard. So that's what we wanted to do. But also going back on the teen violence conversation, is I was also talking to Becky about, um, even as I was trying to write up like what I was going to say at town council. And all I could think about was literally how my heart breaks for the Lord family, and then even uh, all the other teen violence cases from the Jenkins family. My prayers go out to them, the Haley Stevens family, Jeremiah Vas's family, and all the other kids who have been assaulted that we've heard even speak not only on social media, but especially at the town council meetings, and how law enforcement had all of this evidence prior and did nothing and closed the cases. And so, as I was sitting there trying to figure out what I was going to say or wanted to say and how to address it, it was hard to write because seeing it all come up even triggered, like, me being a mom, but then also going back to remembering when I got assaulted in Mesa at backstage at a concert in a green room, and knowing that I was trying to exit one way and I was blocked. I didn't know the people who assaulted me, and they weren't even there for the concert. Um, and they came dressed alike, like wife beater top, Sophie's, and no shoes. And the guys had the girls put hands on me due to another situation of outside things going on amongst the guys. Um, and so the fact, and because me being a loudmouth, apparently, I said something on Twitter like, "Hey, we're grown. Like, have you guys have each other's like phone numbers? Like, take it off social media. Like,
Right.
if you do professional business and take it off social media and like have a grown conversation. Like, you want to
Right.
do grown business, have a grown conversation. Like, we're adults."
Right.
And although we were still young adults. And so it ended up me being assaulted backstage when I was not by or when I was by myself. And so anyways, I tried to like exit or go out to watch the show one way. I got blocked. So then I knew I was going to get jumped. I was texting people. I text my mom. I text people who were on the other side of the wall. It was like, hey, if I don't come out, like, I'm about to get jumped, like this, and this just happened. Like, I'm in the green room, like, I'm about to get jumped. And so I knew it was coming, but then trying to escape, I had nowhere to go. So then I tried to go the other way, and then that's when the female jumped on me from behind, and I hit the concrete and I blacked out. So when I was sitting there, all I could think of was the event in the Halloween party on the 28th of October that Preston and all the youth was at, and the chaos. And so I could just picture myself of one, my mom getting that call and text. Luckily, like for me, I blacked out and I walked away with a concussion, but just looking at the situation of like knowing like I my heart like literally I was just sitting there crying like, "Oh my gosh, my heart breaks for the family," like knowing like Preston sitting there getting assaulted and it's just like, "How?" Like
Yeah.
and so just so many questions come to your mind around knowing that all these kids are around, but then me, all I remember was getting up and seeing all of these cell phones literally all around me like this and white and the bright lights on and filming. And all I remember, of course, my head spinning. All I remember, and mind you, I'm in a like mini skirt and high heels,
Right.
just got jumped on, blacked out. And so I just remember getting up and seeing the lights and someone yelling "World Star." And I'm like crying because security's like grabbing me, throwing me out. And I'm like, I just remember screaming, like, I didn't do anything. And then just seeing all these people like filming and someone yelling "World Star." And so then when I went back to try to get the footage off of, because they went viral on social media, because that's the cool thing to do. Not really, but that's the cool thing to do in society and the culture. So it went viral on World Star. And it was like the fight of the week. And so, um, I tried to get the footage back because I didn't want my daughter to ever have to see that. And they tried to sell it back to me. And so then I was like, you know what, whatever. It worked out in my favor because I could use it later for evidence. Because then what happened was all these people went on social media bragging like that so and so beat up this girl and da da da. So it helped me solve the own like case because
Yeah. Yeah. You knew who it was.
yeah, but even just looking at how this whole situation played out and, like, knowing, like, the gang stalking I went through and, like, the tactics used for even reporting it, having to file restraining orders and all then having to go through, like, the legal route and all of that, and so it really put my mindset in a different place because it's just, like, it's really sad to see how much it's gotten worse, and it's always been there, but it's just like, at what point does it stop?
And yeah. And you're right, it's worse, but where it's literally you have more rights as the person committing the crime
Yep,
than you do as the victim of the crime. And where in the hell did we go wrong?
yep,
And I know that there's a lot of talk about, oh, they'll accuse incorrectly or they'll do this stuff. And it's like, okay, so then that's where the police go in and they have to figure shit out. But nowadays you have video evidence of everything.
yeah, and that's what's
What?
mind-blowing is, like, knowing that there's so much digital forensics, and,
Yes.
like, even, like, in my case, I remember, like, literally serving the whole case up on a platter to Mesa PD, and then I was even told, "Oh, well, you can't pinpoint this person to this because like, there wouldn't be a probable cause, or you can't prove that that was them behind social media," and I'm just like, "They text this person, like, thinking it was a joke and thinking it was funny that they put hands on me." Like, they admitted to it, and
Right.
so, it was just I couldn't ever not everyone who should have got like charged something in my case, but at least I got like the one girl of the group. At least one person was held accountable. But that just reminds me of this whole situation and like gaslighting and just like the paperwork and the amount of stuff that goes on. It's honestly so draining. So I couldn't imagine like this case and the extent and having like the public eyes on it, but like thank God for community to step in and really wrap their arms around
Yes.
the youth and the Lord family, because
Yes.
it's such a heartbreaking situation. But also seeing like all of the other assaults, I love the fact that it's bringing the community together as far as all of the other youth and all of the other cases where they haven't seen justice for their children
Yes.
and their
Yes.
kid they did lose their kids as well. It's now reopening those cases and bringing the parents in the community to have these conversations and say, "Is this kid linked to this case? Okay, is there a tie?" And so
Yep.
to hold these kids accountable because it was preventable.
Mhm.
And there's so many situations where no one was held accountable, not even law enforcement, and
Nope.
that everyone was failed. But we can't sit and point fingers, like that's going to keep us in the same loop. So it's like, what do we do now and how do we go forward to prevent this unfortunate, tragic situation from happening again? And it's sad that Preston and an innocent child lost their life, but at the same time now, it's just a messy, tragic situation. And
Yes, and it
so
keeps getting bigger and messier.
and that's the part that my heart breaks for the family, is as God continues to bring the truth to light, like, it leaves you speechless for the family because it's like, there's no words. There's
No.
absolutely no words because it keeps getting worse as far as this should have never
Leaks or
happened.
things, yes. Yeah, it's the one thing that his aunt said at a walk that I think is absolutely beautiful. A friend of hers
Yeah.
stated that, we could have had an open and shut case with this. Someone recorded it, someone gives over the video, the 16 kids or 5 kids or 2 kids or whoever the hell many kids did this, you arrest them and it's done. And the fact that it has continued to go on for now over 2.5 months, and the community is coming together, and the other parents and other kids are starting to see justice, maybe that's just what God intended. And you never want to use such a tragedy and just for like to forget it and look only on the positive side, but if there's a reason for any of it, it's waking this community up and it's waking up other communities. Like, I don't know how many people have messaged me and be like, what do you know about the Gilbert Goons? Because they know I live here. And so, like, what do you know about this? I'm like, I can tell you a whole bunch of stuff I know about it. But
Yeah.
even still, we go back to the parents and like I had a friend of mine who is looking into like the ALAs. And she's like, well,
Yeah.
how true is it that the school didn't do anything about it? And I was literally able to say, my good friend actually went to the office and submitted this stuff herself, and they did nothing. So it's not just hearsay.
Nope. And that will
It's
be based off of my experience and my opinion and not allegedly.
yes, exactly. And so I'm not saying that everybody has to pull their kid out of school for one thing that happens or the hearsay or whatever, but we have got to be smart about what we're allowing our schools to do, what we're allowing our kids to be part of at these schools. Not everybody can homeschool their kid. Not everybody can take their kid out of school. Not everybody wants to. But we have to be very careful about what we're allowing and what we're doing, and that comes down to having conversations and being aware and getting yourself in the classroom. Like, not every and people have to work, but can you take one day off and volunteer at a party on a Friday or whatever? Get yourself in there so that you know what your kid is exposed to and those kids know you.
Yeah, and one thing I do also wanna go off of sharing that is, as I've seen it, like, on my TikTok, is I didn't think that that post was gonna, like, open up the conversation for so many parents as far as what's happening on other campuses. Again, there are parents, I will say based off of my post and my conversation was based off of my experience
Yep.
at ALA
Yep.
Gilbert and based off of my opinion and our family's experience. Uh, But there are other campuses that this is going on. I've seen all the parents commenting or in my DMs and saying, "Hey, what did you do for your child during this? Like my child is doing this." And just from dissociation to different like coping mechanisms or different patterns that they're seeing, or that they've went to their schools and reported it. And it's not just charter schools, it's happening
Nope.
at public schools
Yep.
too. But what's blown my mind is so many parents have allowed it to be normalized and not really went and pushed forward to this from the school districts to the school itself and the principals and holding them accountable. I think that's one thing that really did shock me, is seeing so many parents come back and saying this is happening here, here, and here. So it's happening at a lot of campuses. And for one thing I also do want to share is, like, if you are on any of our social media posts, um, I am grateful. We are grateful. If your child has gone to any of these schools or things where these things are happening on their campuses. If your child has not had a bad experience, not been bullied, not had any suicidal thoughts or anything like that, like, I am grateful your child has not experienced the trauma that like myself or other families have had to go through. But what I will say is, like, do not take that away from other children and try to gaslight them and say that this didn't happen to them, because when you're doing that, you're taking that child's voice and so many other children who have gone through those things. And so you don't want to silence those children or make them think that they're not heard or seen or loved or enough. So that is one thing that, like, no matter what, on all social media platforms, is like, still be mindful that there's parents grieving on social media as these cases still come to light. um there is children who are watching everything going on, and that's the one thing that is most important, is the child is always going to remember who was there for me, who protected me, and who showed up for me when I needed it the most. And even if that's just sitting and absolutely saying nothing and being present and squeezing their hand or giving them a hug and saying, "I see you. Are you okay? I love you." Or just sitting there and saying, "Is it okay if I sit here?" And remembering to respect their space and saying, "Is it okay if I give you a hug?" And putting that back in that child's hands and respecting the children as well. That way they
Yep.
know that they're being heard, and not
Yep.
forcing them, like, "You have to give me a hug," or "You have to give me a kiss," or, "You have to tell me these things, otherwise you're not gonna be able to do this." Like, that's one thing to remember too, is remembering to really show up and be present for the youth, especially right now.
And that's a really valid point that's actually applicable for pretty much everything, is that your lived experience doesn't mean that that's somebody else's lived experience. And
Mhm.
I'll start at the very minimum. How many times did you tell your kid when they say, "Ow, that hurt," you would say, "No, it didn't"? Who are you to say that it did or didn't hurt? Now, you may not have meant to hurt them, or it may not, the thing may not have hurt you as a grown adult, but if it hurt them, it hurt them. Same thing with these kids and these what's happening at these schools. If you were friends in high school with a high school quarterback and you thought he was the super coolest guy because you played football with him, but he was a jerk to the kid in the band has a very different view of that kid than you do. Same kid. It doesn't matter. Even if you saw him do that and it wasn't you, your experience with that quarterback is a very different experience. And so one person has trauma from that kid, another person has nothing but fun memories. So don't you dare sit there and say that my kid goes to this school, this would never happen, because you're lucky enough that it hasn't happened yet. Because when it does, the first people you'll come to are the people you yelled at to be quiet.
Mhm.
Because all of a sudden you're looking for those loud people to defend your kid too. be quiet or step up. Those are your two options. If it didn't happen to you, praise the Lord that you don't have to go through this and your kids are happy and healthy and they have friends and you're not dealing with this. That's amazing. That's a great thing to praise. But don't tell people and don't gaslight people and tell them that what they are doing isn't right just because it's not your lived experience.
Absolutely.
Boom. Mic drop. That is, again, there's a lot of things. Bridget and I will never sit here and say that we are perfect parents.
Nope.
There's a lot of stuff, and nor will our kids tell you that we're perfect parents. But there's a lot of stuff that we've learned over the years, whether it's from other people, whether we've learned it through experience, whether we've learned it on social media, whatever it is from other smarter people than us, we've put it into practice and we've seen that it works.
Yeah.
And so we're sharing these things because we know that they work. And we also know that the world really needs help. And it's going to start with us. And too many people don't want to be that first step out into darkness. But just like the analogy I gave how many years ago with the candle, if you don't step into the darkness with a candle, who's going to know where to find the light? That's it. Someone's got to be brave enough to hold the candle and only be able to see 6 inches in front of their face. But guess what? All the rest of the people in the back of the room can see you. Someone's just got to be brave enough.
Facts. I was looking for my orange candle, but
I was just going to say, are you looking for a candle? Because it would have been cool.
I had one, but I moved it to my nightstand in my other room.
Ah,
So
come on. We didn't practice that. No, I'm just
no,
kidding.
but well, I have like orange ribbons and bracelets like everywhere.
That's
And then
awesome.
so yeah, I was looking and I'm like, wait, where's my orange candles? But they're in the other room.
Another room. I have one that goes outside every night.
Same. Um, I lost my train of thought. Oh, so yeah, if you see something, also have the conversation with your kids. If you see something, say something, and what it
Facts.
means to be an upstander and what your family really is grounded on from morals and values,
Yep.
and learning to even take things out of your own household if you feel that there's like division. For example, I'll always say, and Becky will say the same thing, is one thing transition wise, um, we don't listen to secular music. And so one thing we've listened to, especially a lot more, is straight Christian music and worship music.
And there's genres of every kind of music. Like you
Yes.
want to listen to rap, there's Christian rap. You want country's usually pretty Christian anyway. There's pop music. Like you don't have to listen to this stuff that's like only in the church. Like
Mhm.
there's good music out there. It just isn't demonic.
And if you want fun, like Christian rap, like let me know. I got you. I got a whole playlist that I built actually out for the youth and the kids. Because yeah, I started to like telling my niece and my nephew and like my daughter, like they know that they're not allowed to have that on. Like it happened years ago, but especially like the last 2 years. They're not allowed to put any secular music on my like in my car. So like they always give me crap, but then now there's songs and certain artists, like example Isaiah Robin, or Mike Teasy, they'll listen to his music and they're like, okay, I like this music. So yeah, if you need music or playlist, let us know.
It's interesting because a couple years ago we were on a road trip and I had on my playlist church music. That's just what I call it. And we ran out of radio, like bandwidth. And I was like, just let me play church music. I said, I promise you it'll calm you down. And they're like, oh, everyone's all grumbling. I don't want to listen to this crap, blah, blah, blah. And then after that, everybody started listening to church music because it really does
Mhm.
ground you. It's peaceful. It's not even, again, you're not listening to like piano music with like psalms or anything. It really is any sort of genre you can find, but it's so it just the vibe that you feel when you're listening to it is totally different.
Shazam's my favorite because I like whenever I want to know a song, I'm like, okay, hold
Oh,
on. And then I like get all of the music and I'm like, okay, I'll create a whole playlist off of it. But yes, I love it.
same.
Any final words you want to close out with? I do love Actually, I do wanna recognize as I do love the community support from the, ribbons and bows going all around the community, but then also, I think it's Gilbert Wax Bar, sorry if I said that wrong, but I think it's Gilbert Wax Bar. They
Something like
have
that.
been leading the way in creating a rock painting station,
Yes.
and I love how one person literally started this whole thing where just an idea of, can I paint a rock? What can I do? How can I help? And spread awareness in my community. Literally painted, it started with an orange rock and putting Preston's name on it. And this has grown so big now. And seeing
Mhm.
so many people drop off like rocks by the hundreds and like painting them in different messages and Preston's name and just spreading awareness throughout the whole community. I love it.
And that's the cool thing, again, that goes with the whole idea of being the first. People have like there's pages and people have said like the whole ribbon thing. Someone was literally like, "Wouldn't it be cool if we could just get ribbon and tie it around the trees like they do for soldiers?" And it's everywhere because it's one person saying, "That's a cool idea, we should do that," to someone being at the store and buying orange ribbon and going to tie it around. Or, "Hey, I have some river rock in my backyard. I'm gonna paint them and go set them at the park." It's this idea that you go do you, and the people who vibe with that will also do that too. You
Yep.
just have to start. And so it's really cool to see that it's not everybody, it's people who kind of flow with that, but they're everywhere.
Absolutely. I think that's the best part is so many people, especially in advocacy, we always feel like we're alone sometimes and like it's too heavy. And so just seeing like the amount of community outreach and love and support in our communities and going back to what it really means to be there and love your neighbor and be in the community and what that looks like and the amount of faith, like the amount of grace and faith that the Lord family has had with not only the community, but this
Right?
whole case and law enforcement, like the amount of grace, especially his aunt the amount that she's posted and the stepmom and the family, like that literally is God driven and rooted in your faith. Like,
Yeah,
and so even just people turning their light bulbs orange and their
I did that.
house lighting is all orange and just little things that you're seeing in the community. And then you pop up on like Go Gilbert or the community like groups and they're like, why is this orange? And then you'll see other people informing other people in the community who might
Yeah,
have not have heard Preston's story and
yep,
what's going on in teen violence. And so uh, I love the fact that the community is really coming together and leading by example, and it's reaching so many people to stand up and use their voice, and also bringing the truth out because more people are now empowering their kids to come forward or
yep,
the parents are showing up to town council meetings and saying, "This happened. Why was my kid's case closed? Like, I want this reopened. Can you
yep.
look at this?" And really applying the
Mhm.
pressure. So I love the fact that we've seen that come out of the community because we definitely need law enforcement to not only do their job, but at the same time, accountability and transparency around because the only way forward is literally bridging the gap and coming together and we have to work together. We can't sit here and bash the cop even though they're not doing their job. We can't
Yep,
sit here and bash them, but at the same time it's like where did we go wrong as a
yes,
community and as law enforcement when it came to digital safety and technology and your kids even recording, being the one to record? Don't
yep.
record, jump in and help save
Will
the
help.
life.
Yes,
And grateful and thank God we had kids who did jump in and be there when Preston was in the street and that whole tragic situation. But it's just even looking back and now thinking even those kids and the trauma and what they last remember and
yep,
how those kids are feeling and how it affects one action literally by multiple kids in this situation affected a whole community
Yes.
and the tragedy that's come out of it, but then don't just focus on the tragedy, but it's like, now how do we help this family heal? And how can we come together as a community to take action to prevent and raise awareness so situations like this don't happen? And
Yeah.
now, what laws can we put in place and say, where did we go wrong? Even brass knuckles. I was sitting at one of the parent meetings and they were talking about that would be a smart common sense thing is the brass knuckles. Like, you can't buy them on Amazon, you can't buy them here. Like, just little things like that, and saying, like, what can I do to step in and help and take a stand and not only be there for the children, but for your community.
But it goes back to, and this was going to be my point of my kind of final take, and it actually works it perfectly, is it kind of is like gun laws or whatever. You can say don't have that thing, but if you've created or you are an evil person, I'll hit you with a stick. Like, it doesn't matter what the thing is that I'm going to be violent with you because I'm a violent person. And so my whole final thought is like I've said numerous times today, is it's got to start at home.
Yep.
And if you are one who is a detached, potentially violent, potentially rude person, and I mean detached, maybe you're on your phone all the time, maybe you're drinking, maybe you're watching sports, maybe you're gambling, and all of those hours of time can be used to figure out your family. You probably need to take a look in the mirror before we start any conversation at all. And again, in moderation, any of that is fine. Whatever, you do what you do you, but we can't look at the world and say what went wrong and how does this get fixed if you're not willing to look in the mirror and fix the parts you can fix, and the only person you can fix is you. And the only place you can start is your home. And so if we don't start creating aware, compassionate, loving children, where is this going to go? Like, we have a generation of people, our generation, that are very angry, very numb, very unaware of what's going on. And when we say, how did we let this happen? That's how we let it happen. I'll say they tricked us into being this way, because our grandparents would be dead before they would let this shit happen. And it's just slowly happened over time, and now it's our turn to start standing up and start fixing and creating the lives that we think the world should be like. Because then we have kids who will stand up for other kids. We have kids who will be loving to other kids. And is that going to be everybody? No. But it's the same way that you go out and you preach the word of God. You don't throw it down someone's throat. You love them. And
Mm.
whatever that is, that goes to the next person. We leave it to God, but we've got to start in our homes, and it takes a long time. It will not be something that changes tomorrow or next week or next month. It takes months and years for these things to turn, and it's gonna feel weird. If you've never prayed at dinner, it's gonna feel weird. If you never talked about the dangers of pornography with your kids, it's gonna feel weird. If you've never discussed and been very transparent with your kids about why you do what you do, it's gonna be weird. That's our job. We've got to start being transparent with our kids and being open and honest and loving so they can model our behavior. They don't just do what they're told.
Absolutely. And learn to be uncomfortable and
Yes.
grow from those situations and give yourself grace along the way, because
Amen.
it's not easy. It's emotional roller coaster. And so really just remembering, even to before I go into close, is with this whole case still ongoing and waiting for the truth to come to light, also remember, be mindful of what you're posting, that there is a lot of children watching, especially when resharing the videos of the assaults. And just remembering at the same time that with the children watching there and everyone watching, there's so many people just remember to sit back and don't get sucked into it, and remember to think, "How can I be a light in this
Yep.
situation
Share
and
the positive.
share the positive, and how can I serve my community? How can I honor
Yep.
Preston and who he was as a person, and honor his family and be mindful of that because there's so much going on around social media. Don't get lost in the dark and just be positive as hard as that is right now with so many unanswered questions, but remember, like, his family is grieving actively with all of us as a community, and so they're having to see headline after headline go out into the community seeing orange ribbons. Like, I love that the community support is there, but just being mindful when sharing, like, the kids' faces who are assaulting all these other kids because those kids are still, if they open their phones and their devices, they're reliving those memories. If they're getting called into questioning with the police, they're having to re-walk themselves in these situations and what happened. And so those are trauma responses and they're re-triggering themselves. So just be mindful of that and that there's innocent souls and families behind these devices, which
Yep.
are way more important than social media, clout, and alike. So just be
Amen.
mindful and respectful of that. Um, but again, change starts with awareness. When does it stop? Justice starts with us. When each and every single one of us have the courage to stop looking away and turning a blind eye. You don't get to look the other way on this issue. An innocent soul, a child, was brutally murdered. Preston Lord could have been any one of our children. What if it was your child? Together, we must rise for the children. It starts with one person. It starts with you. When you say, "Am I a part of the problem?" When you face that mirror and start holding people accountable. Please contact us if you need information to connect your school or community with Starbright Foundation or Red Light Rebellion, which are prevention programs addressing physical, emotional, spiritual health, and the importance of digital safety and resilience. So we can get a prevention program implemented at our local schools, communities, and all town and government officials. This will be the next step to eradicate teen violence and stop allowing the abusers to continue to perpetuate and inflict. Sorry, I messed that up. The abusers to continue to perpetuate intentional infliction of emotional distress on the youth in the community due to the senseless acts of violence. Adverse childhood experiences are the lead contributor to senseless acts of violence and gang stalking tactics we are witnessing in the community and across the nation. I'm concerned again as suicide rates have continued to skyrocket, sextortion, drug trafficking, drug use, including alcohol, vapes with weed and fentanyl on elementary and high school campuses, as well as sexual assault. As stated by the county attorney, based on Superior Court's most recent stats, show the number of crimes committed by minors with weapons has increased by 5 times more from 2022 to 2017. That's including all categories: possession, murder, and aggravated assault. Please remember, the children are watching, and your silence is deafening. As we were told to wait for a thorough investigation, the children go to school feeling unsafe, unheard, unseen, and cannot even be children. While they wonder as life goes on, who's here protecting them? Where's the justice? As they live in survival mode using coping mechanisms. The children are in communities every day and cross paths with the teens who continually to get away with the assaults and murder. It's more than a hashtag, it's a child's life. We have no future if we don't protect the children. We have a duty to protect the innocent. If we don't, that blood is on our hands. To the youth, those that reported prior but were silenced, you are courageous. We're sorry for everything you've endured, and we pray for healing and strength as God continues to bring these stories to light. We pray for your protection and protection over the youth. Please know we're here for you. You are enough. Your voice does matter. We see you, we hear you, we stand by you. We love you. Be an upstander and continue to keep the Lord family, the Jenkins family, the Stevens family, and the Aveas families, and all of the youth in your prayers. If you see something, say something. We want to take a moment of silence and pray for protection over the youth and families affected by the senseless acts of violence in our communities. Thank you, and we love you. Love Save Our Children podcast.